We were hoping to talk to you about some...
DEP's doing great work.
Are they going to do an interview with us?
Well, Brendan, I really, frankly, don't know.
Because there's about 12,000 people in this area that are being exposed to these cancer-causing chemicals. There were 4,100 outages caused by your equipment failure. So you clearly have a problem with your equipment. What are your concerns with this toxic cancer-causing chemical that's being released into the area that you represent? Well, we've been trying for a month now to schedule one, and he hasn't been able to get one for us. That's what we were hoping to do today.
He's not here today.
He's not here today? Would he be in later this afternoon?
I have no way of knowing. At
least 3 Charleston City Council members could have technically been removed from their position for missing so many consecutive meetings. Do you feel that they're representing people if they're not here? Those extremely high water rates aren't seen in other communities that aren't served by American Water. In fact, well, JB could soon be paying $93 a month for his water. His neighbors across the river are only paying $36 for the same amount. As the governor walked down to the Capitol, I tried to ask him questions about what the state's doing to address concerns about the toxic chemical ethylene oxide. Do you think the state of West Virginia and the EPA is doing enough to protect the environment and protect people that live here?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Earlier this week, we introduced you to Kathy Ferguson. Her home sits on the hill just above the Union Carbide facility in Institute, a facility the EPA says releases ethylene oxide known as ETO, a colorless, odorless gas that can cause cancer. Kathy is among more than 12,000 people who live in an area the EPA identified in August 2018 as having a potentially elevated risk for cancer from ETO emissions. By March 2020, the EPA declared that same area a hotspot. But near this plant in Institute, that risk is actually more than 3 times higher, with 335 in a million people who could develop cancer. Last September, the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection held a virtual public meeting to answer questions from community members. Since then, we've been collecting data and asking questions to see what's actually being done to protect these people. But we haven't been able to get any answers.
This is Terry Fletcher, Acting Communications Director for the West Virginia DEP. I'm currently away from my desk.
That's the message I got every single time I reached out to the DEP. Not a single one of my calls were picked up. Hi, Terry. This is Brendan Tierney with WSAZ News Channel 3. And none of my calls or voicemails were returned. At the same time, I started sending emails requesting documents and an interview, like Fletcher's voicemail message instructed. Every time we asked for an interview, though, our requests were either ignored or we were told, quote, "We do not have anyone available at this time." After our initial story aired, we sent a link to our investigation to Terry Fletcher's boss, DEP Cabinet Secretary Harold Ward, once again asking for an interview. Ward never responded to us, but I did get an email from Communications Director Terry Fletcher 48 hours later that said Ward forwarded him my message and, quote, "The WVDEP will not be providing an interview at this time on this subject, as I have stated previously to you," and went on to say, quote, "All the information the agency has on this issue has been provided." But wait a minute. Back on January 19th, we asked for all communications between the DEP and the EPA, as well as all communications between the DEP and Union Carbide. At the time, we were told they were working on a response and should have something to you by next week. That was nearly a month ago. To date, we have received 0 documents. So we took this issue to the DEP Secretary's boss, Governor Jim Justice.
Hello, everyone. It's February the 17th.
We asked Governor Justice for an interview, but never got a response. So we went to the West Virginia Capitol to talk with the governor after his scheduled virtual COVID-19 press briefing. We were hoping to talk to you about some...
DEP's doing great work.
Are they going to do an interview with us?
Well, Brendan, I really, frankly, don't know.
Because there's about 12,000 people in this area that are being exposed to these cancer-causing chemicals. Governor, are you in touch with the EPA at all?
We're in touch with everybody.
What are you doing to protect people in these areas?
The DEP does great work, man.
As Governor Justice drove away without answering our questions, we went back inside and tried to ask the communications staff if anyone else was willing to talk about the issue. Hey, Jordan, are you willing to let us maybe talk with Secretary Ward? Or anyone else? So clearly, they weren't interested in talking with us, but I can tell you we shared our investigation with Senators Manchin and Capito, as well as the state senators who represent this area of Kanawha County. Each of them responded to us saying they're interested in either talking with us or sharing their thoughts. And of course, we'll let you know what they say. You pay your electric bill every month and expect those lights to stay on. But my investigation uncovers more people in West Virginia sit in the dark than any other state in the nation.
It's like a third world country up here on account of the power.
Will you have to buy a generator just to live? I mean, this is not in the 1800s. This is 2020, 2021.
It's a story we hear time and time again. People fed up and frustrated with power outages. The latest federal report shows West Virginia is ranked #1 in the country for power outages not caused by a storm. Appalachian Power serves the majority of people in our part of the state, so I took their customers' concerns straight to the top and sat down exclusively with Appalachian Power President Chris Beam. Last year, you had 6,000 outages caused by tree. There were 4,100 outages caused by your equipment failure. So you clearly have a problem with your equipment.
I don't agree with that. It is a whole host of things. Trees out of the right of way, #1.
It was the #2 cause last year.
Okay.
Does that not concern you? How are you going to make those numbers go down?
Well, it does concern us. All outages concern us. So this system is an old system. I think you probably well know that. This system, early 1900s, 1910, 1920. Some of that stuff's still in service today.
So those older equipment, it is what's failing, you're saying?
Nope. It's all kinds of equipment fail. We bought brand new pieces of equipment and installed, and they failed right out of the box.
Customers are the ones paying to upgrade the outdated or failed equipment. According to the PSC, the average Appalachian Power bill has gone up $55 per month over the past decade. The company says those increases are meant to help reduce outages, but I spent months searching through thousands of pages of PSC documents that show despite those efforts, outages have only become longer and more frequent. And you're passing those costs on to the customer.
That is correct. That's how it works.
In addition to a higher bill, every time the power goes out, it can cost a family hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. One customer who reached out to get a refund from the power company got a message back that reads in part, "When the power is out, charges do not accrue, since there is no usage." Do you guys reimburse people for hotels or groceries after a power outage?
We do not.
Why do you not do that?
We're not required to do that by the law.
Even when it's a customer who has an outage caused by an equipment failure?
That's correct.
Last winter, more than 100,000 West Virginians were left freezing in the dark following 2 ice storms. Appalachian Power called in more than 2,000 people to help restore the power, but some customers waited a month to get their electricity back on. There are people out there who are having to go out and scrape together money to buy a generator to try to stay warm during these power outages.
Yep, understand.
Did you lose power during the ice storm?
I did.
How long were you out for?
A week.
Do you have a generator at your house?
I do.
Why?
Because when I bought the house, it was there. I moved here from Ohio.
Do you like that you have a generator?
Yes.
Would you say you lose power often and it helps you because of the power outages?
It makes it more convenient.
But these are people that are going out there and they expect their power to work and to be on. Mm-hmm. Why should they have to go spend the money on that when they should just be paying their utilities for it to work?
And I agree. But like I said, once again, very old system. We are upgrading it as fast as we can. We have to remember, you have to balance a couple things here, right? So if we go fix everything today, the price goes up more.
Beam says he's even frustrated by how often his power goes out. But I found PSC filings that show West Virginia power companies have spent more than $1 billion in recent years on system maintenance and improvement. That includes a tree trimming program designed to clear each wire every 4 years. However, the power poles outside of one customer's house look like this. To me, that looks more like a tree than it does a power pole.
Well, if you're in the power industry, it looks like kudzu growing up a power pole. That's what it looks like.
But do you understand that people who live right there say they're paying for you to clean these lines, and to them it doesn't look like you're doing it?
Okay, once again, we have thousands of miles of line. I have 4 years to trim them from end to end. This kudzu probably grew like this in less than a year, would be my guess, because of how fast it grows.
Is that normal?
It is very normal, yes.
So it's something we kind of see across the state?
Yes.
But could that cause a power outage or cause a transformer to blow?
I guess you could assume. I don't know, probably.
Who gets the money? Where's it going? Because we are not seeing it. We are not seeing it in our town.
Angela Copley says she hasn't seen crews trim the power poles near her house in Fort Gay. After enduring 16 days in the dark during the ice storms, she says some of her neighbors have even moved out due to the constant power outages.
I want to be warm. I want to be able to turn my air conditioner on, my heater on, and my refrigerator, and it work every day. You know, I don't want to rough it inside my house. I want to rough it in the woods.
Transformer out there, I've seen it blow.
Harry White says his power in the Clendenin area goes out multiple times per week. Kanawha County Commission President Ken Carper says his office is flooded with similar complaints and says customers should not be paying more while dealing with these constant outages.
They failed to maintain their right-of-ways for over 20 plus years. This didn't happen 20 years ago. News flashed to the power company. The mountains and the trees have been here a lot longer than 20 years.
But those trees and mountains are exactly what Beam blamed for the frequent outages and long restoration times. Despite Beam telling me that vegetation can become a problem in less than 4 years, which is how often he says they trim around every wire. So we asked if some areas should be trimmed more often than others. Beam says they have just started a pilot program to do just that. What difference is that making for customers right now, then?
Well, we have not done enough of this yet to even tell you if there's value here. I just don't know yet.
When might you know?
I'd say it'd probably take about, a year to get enough data behind it to say, did that make a difference or not? And the only reason I say a year is because you like to go through the seasons. You want to cycle all 4 seasons to see if it makes a difference.
But you're even doing this because you're getting a sense that there are some areas that need to be trimmed more than every 4 to 5 years.
That very well could be, yes.
In addition to that effort, Appalachian Power customers are paying more starting this month for what Beam calls smart circuits that can automatically detect an outage and partially restore power in seconds. How long until the entire state's covered in that technology?
The entire state won't be covered in that because the cost is just too prohibitive.
Meaning everyone's paying more, but some people won't see these benefits. We asked about a number of other ways to improve service, like putting lines underground. Beam says the company could do that, but $30 billion wouldn't even begin to cover the cost. Yes, Sarah and Tim, at the beginning of the COVID-19 vaccine rollout, West Virginia was actually leading the nation in getting shots in arms. Over a year later, the percentage of the state's population that's fully vaccinated is among the worst in the country. And the CDC doesn't expect that to get better anytime soon.
Run to the fire and get yourself vaccinated. It's so simple and it's so safe. It's unbelievable. You need to do it right now. That's all there is to it.
It's been the same message multiple times per week for a year now.
Get vaccinated. Please take the vaccine. I don't believe this is going away. The antibodies will save your life. I've said it 1,000 times.
West Virginia Governor Jim Justice repeating himself time after time when telling people to get a life-saving COVID-19 vaccine. But DHHR data shows vaccination rates have slowed to a crawl, with half the state's population still not protected. You've been telling people Your options are get a shot or you can die from this. We're about to hit 5,000 deaths here in West Virginia. Have you considered changing your message possibly going forward? Because it doesn't appear like we're making that much progress right now.
What would you change it to? You know, I mean, I'm absolutely steadfast against mandating things. Since we started to do it for baby dog stuff, we've got 300,000 people that have got their first shot. 300,000. And I'm not going to stand by and say, no, it's not working.
That 300,000 number is how many people the governor says have been vaccinated since he launched his campaign in June, handing out millions of dollars worth of cash, cars, scholarships, and more. However, according to DHHR data, we found only 240,000 people have become partially vaccinated since the campaign started. And the graphs show vaccinations have steadily gone down. At the same time, more people have become eligible to get a shot, including children aged 5 to 17.
I think there's all kinds of things that we could say. Well, you know, maybe the Martians really are invading us, and that's why we're really truly seeing a slight increase. We picked baby dog of all things, you know. Well, baby dog really and truly makes everybody smile looking at her.
But what does smiling have to do with getting shots in arms?
Everywhere I go out, I say the same messages and everything. But you've got to have some gimmick, you've got to have something that is your marketing plan.
So you think 50% where we're at right now is the best we can do at this point?
Did I say that?
Well, you said you've tried everything.
Did I say that we're going to quit trying things? You know, no. It's not as good as what we want it to be, but it can be better. But we are absolutely in a very, very red, very conservative state. And a lot of people have their minds made up and they're very difficult to get there.
In fact, the CDC doesn't expect the state's vaccination rate to get any better over the next year, with almost every other state predicted to reach herd immunity. The vaccination struggle has been seen in areas like Kanawha County, where they went from vaccinating 5,000 people on a Saturday in February to less than 100 now. For 17 straight weeks, this now empty room was the very place where Dr. Sherry Young held massive COVID-19 vaccination clinics in Charleston, quickly becoming the face of the vaccination effort.
I can't believe how empty this looks without the chairs and the hundreds of people here.
As we took her back to the room where it all began, she couldn't help but get emotional. She says once the demand slowed, they had to leave this large space and go to neighborhoods to get more people vaccinated. We're only seeing about 50% of the state being vaccinated right now. As a health officer, does it concern you that we aren't seeing more people and more demand for this vaccine?
Yes, and for a couple of reasons. We're battling more demons now than we were last year. Last year COVID was our focus. We didn't have much of a flu season, so we didn't have a lot of flu hospitalizations. Here we are dealing with different variants and people traveling and not wearing masks, so that the opportunity for COVID to continue goes on.
While Kanawha County's vaccination rate is well below the national average, it's actually much higher than other areas of West Virginia, where only a third of the population might be vaccinated. COVID-19 czar Dr. Clay Marsh says the state has really hit a roadblock with people refusing to get a shot.
It makes us sad to see people die of a disease, COVID-19, where we have treatment that could prevent each one of those deaths, most likely. We also know that we all make our decisions and there are consequences and ramifications.
You read the names, where they're from, and the age of the people who die. What toll has it taken on you hitting 5,000 of those?
It's terrible. It's just plain terrible.
Do you think that number could have been lower had we had a higher vaccination rate?
There's no question whatsoever. The more that are vaccinated, the less will die.
Despite the 310,000 West Virginians that have gotten sick from COVID-19 and the 5,100 West Virginians that have now died from the virus, the governor was adamant that a state mandate is not the answer. While West Virginia has fallen to the bottom of the vaccination rankings, other states have passed us using that clinic model that Dr. Young created right here in Kanawha County. We did also take a look at how the rest of our region compares and found 58% of people in Ohio are fully vaccinated, and in Kentucky, that same number is 54%. But the big difference here is the CDC predicts that those numbers will eventually get to herd immunity over the course of the next year. And Tim and Sarah, tomorrow we'll take a look at the divide we're seeing here in West Virginia between the rural and the urban areas.
Yeah.